as I'm concerned. And it's supposedly about Trump tariffs. Trump is threatening these tariffs as cover, in my mind, to reshore all of this gold. Because I think they understand we are moving into a system where if you don't have gold, you're in trouble, like the BRICS, right? Dilma Rousseff, the former president of Brazil, and the head of the BRICS New Development Bank came out a few months ago during the big meeting in Kazan and said, look, we've agreed in principle to a new settlement currency called the unit. It will be pegged to gold, 40% in kilobar form, deliverable upon request, and 60% BRICS plus currencies. And so you're beginning to see countries who are acknowledging gold's role. And I believe Trump understands this very well. I think he told everyone leading into November when he won the election, this is going down. Start bringing as much of the metal back as you can. We're going to say it's about tariffs, but it's much deeper than that. In my mind, I believe he is going to reintroduce gold into the system. Now, I did an interview with Judy Shelton recently. This is her book. I suggest people read it. Good as gold. Judy was Trump's nominee for Federal Reserve Chair in 2016. She was not confirmed, but remained an advisor. And I have a feeling she'll end up on the Federal Reserve Board of Governors this time, maybe even take over for Powell when his tenure expires. But her book and my interview with her, she explains, is that her premise is to issue US Treasuries redeemable in gold. And starting with 50-year, ultimately she would like to do shorter duration. And she says she hopes that stable coins would be issued off of these treasuries as well. And I said to her, Judy, first of all, why hasn't Fort Knox been audited? This was about 2 months ago when I did the interview, maybe 6 weeks ago. And now we see that Doge is going to audit Fort Knox. She says it should be audited. It's a disgrace that it hasn't been. She's like, they say it's a bunch of crap. She says it costs too much. They tell us it costs too much and too logistically challenged. She said, we're the United States, for God's sakes. This should be easy to do. And then I said, Judy, I agree. It should. And hopefully it does. Well, it looks like it is. And I said, do you know that the gold that is held in the Federal Reserve balance sheet or the U.S. government balance sheet, rather, and on every central bank balance sheet throughout Europe, it's held in an account called the Gold Revaluation Account. You can't make that up. That is the name of it. And, Roosevelt did it in 1933 when he confiscated gold. Gold was $20. Those $20 gold coins, that was a lot of money back then. But he paid everyone $20.56, I believe. At 56 cents, prior to 1933, when a dozen eggs is 5 cents, that was decent money. Everyone was happy. And then he devalued the dollar immediately by 40%, making gold worth more, and gold was revalued. In 1971, when Nixon closed the gold window at $35 an ounce, it revalued to where it is today at over $2,900 by the market. But in essence, the Federal Reserve, if they wanted to, or the U.S. government, if they wanted to, rather, could revalue gold. It's in the revaluation account. They could market to market, because on the U.S. balance sheet, it's at $42.22 an ounce. Just after Nixon closed the gold window, they valued it, and that's what it was valued at. In Europe, it's at $35 an ounce, still the old Bretton Woods price. And so we've had the head of the Dutch National Bank for 3 years scream we should revalue gold to offset the liabilities on our balance sheet. And we should at least market to market, if not much higher. Many members of the Bundesbank have said that. And now we get Senator Cynthia Lummis from Wyoming, who spoke at the Bitcoin conference after Trump, advocating for the same thing. In order to fund the strategic Bitcoin account, she said we should revalue the gold held by the Federal Reserve on behalf of the Treasury in order to create enough money to buy the Bitcoin. And so when you listen to what Judy says, when you listen to what Senator Lummis says, when you listen to what the members of the Bundesbank and the Dutch National Bank say, it becomes very intriguing, much more so when our current Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, whose largest personal holding is physical gold, comes out last week and says we intend to monetize the asset side of the U.S. government balance sheet. Now, you look at the U.S. government balance sheet, it's horrendous. You have student debt being their largest asset of the U.S. government, roughly 40% of the just over $5 trillion in assets they own. The next largest is military, bases, bullets, guns, airplanes. You can't monetize those two things. But you could monetize land, which is their third largest holding dollar-wise. You could monetize some of the natural resources, I guess. You can remonetize gold, which is held in the Gold Revaluation Account, which is the only other Tier 1 reserve asset, which the central banks have been buying and repatriating since 2017, which the commercial banks have been massively purchasing as well, it seems, to bring it all back here home under the ruse of tariffs, but in my mind, to reshore it so that we do have enough gold. Because you know what? Now that Fort Knox is going to be audited, it'll be interesting to see what's there. It hasn't been audited in reality since 1953. And some surmise there's IOUs in there. Could this gold that's rushing back be used to throw in there? I don't know. But what I will tell you is that it is, in my opinion, that, oh, by the way, Judy Shelton said to me that Trump will issue, to her understanding, she believes, these gold-backed treasuries on July 4th next year, 2026, which would be the 250th year anniversary. They've discussed it. They discussed it even in the last term. And that she believes the only way to inspire confidence in our treasuries after years of mismanagement of the world reserve currency of a country that is really kind of locked in an inflationary spiral and a debt spiral at that, and one that has chosen sanctioning as a way of dealing with things. It's like Trump is still saying, we'll put 100% tariffs on you guys if you do this. That's not a tariff, that's a sanction. A tariff is something you put in place to protect your domestic manufacturing. It's not something where you say, if you don't do this, then we'll do this. That's a sanction. It's a threat. And so in order to get people to buy our treasuries, and how important is that? And I'll shut up here pretty quick, but we have in the next 3 years, right? 2028, we have $28 trillion in US Treasuries that come due to be paid. We take in under $5 trillion a year in tax revenue. So high end, $15 trillion in tax revenue. And he's going to lower taxes. So it'll be lower than that. So say it's $14 trillion in tax revenue, or even 15. We have 28 that comes due by 2028. That number, 28 trillion by 2028. And that doesn't take into account, we're already at over 800 billion in debt just this year, and it's February. We'll have another $1 trillion plus deficit this year and the next several years, which would mean that we're almost halfway there just to cover what's coming due by 2028, let alone what we're continuing to spend. So we have to find somehow, some way to inspire confidence in our treasury market, because we're the most indebted nation in the history of the world. Interest rates are rising, and our spending, our fiscal irresponsibility has to be dealt with. So if they do issue, Trump does, these treasuries backed by gold, July 2026, that means somewhere between now and then, not only will they continue to try and get as much back into the vaults as possible, but I believe there is a high probability we will see gold revalued out of the Gold Revaluation Account. Now, the question is, do they market to market at 3,000, which in and of itself would be amazing. Every $4,000 increase in the price of gold would give the Treasury General Account $1 trillion free and clear. So some people think they'll make it to 4 trillion. Others have taken M1, the money supply, taken 40% of that, whatever that number is, and divided it into gold, and you get about $12,000. And that's what Switzerland used to have 40% gold backing. Now the BRICS are talking 40% gold backing. If we had 40% gold backing, the numbers range from 12 to 14,000. James Rickards has talked a lot about that. So it is not something that is pie in the sky, and there would be very little congressional approval needed to do this. In essence, it would be more or less an executive order, or Trump saying to Scott Bessent, tell Jerome Powell to revalue the gold. And they would. And that would mean it's revalued across the globe. So that will have ramifications as well. It would make countries like China and Russia and Saudi Arabia and India, those that have been buying it, it would enrich them. It would also make our dollar drop in regards to gold, which is what he wants, a weaker dollar. It would create inflation, but it would start to get our balance sheet in line with the ability to at least reignite confidence. And if you redeem it in gold, make them redeemable in gold, you are now beginning to at least address the situation and find demand where I believe there really isn't much of any demand any longer for the U.S. long dated